And we're live. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to the show, Lucas. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on board. Um, I must say, I saw you at Redacted, and I just said, I needed to have a chat with you. I needed to get you on this show because you were quite very inspirational. Even though I'm not a U.S. citizen, I was really inspired by you coming out and everything that you've said, and I think everything you said was 100% agreeable, and I just needed to get you on this show and talk to you a bit more. Welcome to all the viewers. We've got a great show for you today. As you can see, we have Lucas, an absolute star. He was on the Redacted show a couple of days ago, and now he's kindly come onto our show to kind of discuss a few more things. So thanks everyone for listening. Thank you for all my moderators. And Lucas, how are you today? How's things going?
I'm doing
Yeah.
well. Things are going great. The kids are out of the house, so it's just me and my wife, and have some time to ourselves. Things like that. Normal day, but just going through the motions of life, but also watching the world go crazier every day as well. Because I'm telling
You-
her, I'm like, I don't know. I'm worried about our kids' future. Like, are they going to go to college? Like, will there even be college in 10 years? Are we going to be at civil war? Like, who knows what's going to happen? So I'm like telling her, like, it's not the same
yeah.
world that we grew up in.
Ironically, my channel is called "The World Has Gone Crazy,"
Well, there you
and I,
go. Yeah,
I
good.
started it a few years ago, way before everything actually did go crazy.
Well, see, you made it happen. See, you cursed the world
Yeah,
into craziness.
my fault. Yeah.
Mm,
um, so let's not waste any more time,
sure.
Lucas. I mean, everyone knows why you're here, and first of all, thank you for your service. I think a lot of people know that you were a Marine, and you had two tours in Iraq, I
Hmm.
believe.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about yourself, how you enlisted, and what was your experience like? And then I'll go into the more kind of detailed what made you change, and then we'll go into
Sure.
Ukraine after that.
So my story. Well, first, I was actually born in Italy, so I actually didn't say this on Redacted. So I was actually born in Italy. Came here when I was 2 years old. My grandfather was in the Air Force. He was a major in intelligence, and so he was stationed in Italy. That's where I met my grandmother. But anyway, uh, my great grandfather was a Marine, so it's in my blood to go into these things. I guess my father skipped it; he didn't go through that. But what got me into Marine Corps was when I've lived in New Jersey my whole life. I'm currently 38, so been here for 36 years. And when 9/11 took place, I was 17, and I was at the dentist. And like most people, when we first heard the tower get struck by one plane, the first tower getting hit, we're like, oh, what a terrible accident. Like, what happened? This pilot fell asleep. What's going on? But as I was at the dentist, I heard the second plane hit the other tower. I was like, okay, this doesn't sound right. So I think at that point, everyone on Earth knew something was going on.
Yeah.
So I finished my appointment to dentist, drove to school. On my way to school, I used to live in Warren, New Jersey. Warren, New Jersey is really above sea level, and there's a place called Washington Rock where apparently George Washington looked out for the British over to the seas. You can see New York City, you can see everything.
Yeah.
So I saw just smoke, the towers, all of New York just completely covered in this. And I was like, wow, this is really crazy. So I drove to school because my sister is at school. She's a few years younger than me. I said, you all right? She's like, yeah, I'm okay. So I drove back home. And then I watched on television, like everyone else, the rest of the day, the collapse of the towers. And I go, holy God, what's going on here? So that moment I said, I got to do something about this. So when I think it was one of those, like, I think in high school when you have those days where like a job day or something where people come from different areas, there's different colleges. Well, the Marine Corps was there too. And I looked at the Air Force, I looked at the Army, I looked at everyone else in the Navy, but I saw the Marine Corps and their color is really nice. I like their uniforms and they're like the badass people. So I was like, let me join them. And I spoke to a recruiter. He's like, well, listen, kid, you're too young. You're 17. So you can't join yet, but you can do the delayed entry program, which is basically you sign up now technically, but you can't leave until you're 18, but it shaves 1 year off your reserve. So you got 4 years of service, then 4 years of reserve where they can call you back, right? Now, that takes one off of that. So it's 7 years total. I only did 4 years anyway. But so when I was 18, I turned 18 in May 2002, 18. And right after high school, after graduation, 4 days right to boot camp. And that's where I started my training for 3 months, got back home in September, had to leave for like a month or so. Then I had to go to engineer school. from October, November, December, and then February 2014. I'm sorry, February 14th, 2003. I was deployed to Kuwait, where we stationed our stuff there, and then March 3rd into Iraq for the first tour for 5 months. Now, the Marine Corps, unlike the Army, they don't do 2 years at a time or crazy, things like that. We only do 6-month deployments at a time, small, months at a time, not like, like the Army does. And so my first tour was 5 months. Then after that, I came back, went on leave, the same date, February 14th, but this time 2004, redeployed to Iraq for 7 months. So the first time was the war, the actual invasion. The second time was maintaining what we gained, right? We took over Iraq and had to do all that stuff. I was a combat engineer. Basically, I helped blow up landmines, unexploded ordnance. We did convoy security because every Marine's are riflemen. So even though I'm not supposed to be doing, well, not supposed to be, but even though I'm not infantry, I could be acted like infantry if I needed to. So again, we all have rifles. So convoy security, we would build barbed wired fences, things like that. So defenses and stuff like this. That's what I did for my tours. But the first tour was the invasion. We didn't have anything. We had to go to the bathroom, go dig a hole in the sand, right over there in front of everybody. That kind of living. It was very, not high standard living. The second tour, we were at Camp Al Assad Air Base. So that's the air base that actually the Iranians struck after Trump assassinated Soleimani foolishly. I wasn't there during that, obviously. That was years later. But that's where I was stationed the second time, which had everything. We had a gym. We had a commissary to buy stuff. We had, Sunday, we had steak and lobster. It was incredible. We had showers. It was basically, that's after we have occupied Iraq for the time, But before we had nothing. That was the first time. The first tour I went in there, I didn't shower for a month. I remember having all the sand on my face crusted, my eyes, because I had goggles on. I took them off. It was pale. Yeah, it was crazy stuff. I mean, I've seen death and destruction. I almost got blown up in an IED. Things like that. You get desensitized. At first you're scared because I was only 18, but I also thought I was Rambo. Like, oh, this is so cool. I'm on the 240 gun. I got night vision goggles. I'm crossing the border from into Iraq here, and it's like everything's destroyed already. I'm looking for action. There's no action. Everyone's gone. But it was an interesting experience. We actually all believed we were doing the right thing. All of us thought we were liberating Iraq. The population was very kind to us. I don't think they had a choice anyway. But that was my experience there, and I don't regret it, but it's what drives me today to come on shows like this to talk about pushing for peace and being anti-war and exposing the lies, because that was devastating what we did to the Iraqi people.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, I was in United States when September 11th happened. I used to live in Atlanta, and I remember being there, and it was. I completely agree with that the whole world found a new enemy, and they needed to kind of combat terrorism. It was a major evil. So I completely agreed with the first Iraq War. I was completely on board with that.
Course, yeah.
The second Iraq War was completely different, and you knew that the reasons to go in wasn't anything about September 11th, because none of the those none of the people in the planes were Iraqi. First of all, there's no links between the hijackers and Iraq. There's no links between the hijackers and Saddam. There was no link between Al Qaeda and Saddam. In fact, Saddam was actually fighting the Al Qaeda. He was trying to kick them. He's trying to kick them out of the country. And I remember at that in the second Iraq War, I was in UK at the time, and I remember seeing all of these lies. And one of the things that the UK had done, they a small kid, a university student, did a thesis about Iraq, how Iraq could fire weapons within 45 minutes and hit UK. Some ridiculous thesis. And the British government basically copied that thesis, and they released it as an official paper. And I just couldn't believe it. And I thought, what the hell is this? And it was major news at the time. And people were, some people noticed it was just plagiarized copy of some stupid, ridiculous paper. Then you see all these ridiculous stories online. How this girl was talking about this babies being thrown out of incubators, and later on you find out that she's the Iraqi ambassador's daughter.
Yeah, that was the first Gulf War. Yeah, that was way
Yeah,
91, I believe it
91,
was.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
And but the stories came out. I mean, you find out in this near the second Gulf War who she really was. In the first
yeah,
Gulf War, you don't really
right.
question it, but in the second one, all the news articles started coming out. She's the daughter of the Kuwaiti minister, and then suddenly things started. You start questioning things, and then you had Colin Powell, who was supposed to be the white dove of the administration. He was supposed to be the clever one of the
Hmm.
administration, right? They called him the white dove. So he was going to the UN, and he had this little bottle full of washing powder, and he was like, and he was showing it in the UN, and everyone in the UN was absolutely shocked, and they were like, "Oh my God," and he was obviously there for shock value,
Right.
and he managed to get everyone on board. And later on, he said, "Oh, he was only washing powder and stuff like that."
The
And he
funny thing
completely,
is,
yeah, completely ruined his reputation. Completely ruined his because he was supposed to be the white dove, and then after that, he completely ruined his. Nobody believed him after that, and even I think in his final days, he said that was his biggest regret. That
yeah,
day when
well,
he went on to UN. Um,
yeah,
uh,
those people, these are all psychopaths. And by the way, the anthrax scares, you remember those
yeah,
letters with anthrax? Well, it turns out that was military grade anthrax that we could only produce. It's like, how did Al Qaeda get it? It
yeah,
obviously wasn't
yeah,
them. There's so many loopholes in
yeah.
9/11's narrative and everything around that time. But the thing is, once you get, George Bush say, we're going to take the people down and took down these towers. It's like Americans just don't go. It's like Pearl Harbor. They got their new Pearl Harbor, just like PNAC wrote, and they
Right,
treated it
right.
just like it, and never forget. And they have memorials and everything like this, and mission accomplished. All this propaganda, and I had no idea. Obviously, I would have never joined anything if I knew. In the
Mm.
second tour, I'm still waiting for weapons of mass destruction to be found, and they weren't being found.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly, exactly.
so
Yeah, I think this in the second tour. I mean, there was about 2 million people in UK demonstrating out in the street, protesting for UK not to join this war. But
mm,
it didn't really, nobody really listened. At the time, Tony Blair was probably the biggest puppet
mm,
uh, of the world at the time, and he was literally following Bush everywhere he went, even including in the toilets. He was just his long best buddy puppet. You tell you know you tell Blair how high he should jump, and he would jump if Bush told him that.
yeah,
So it was quite embarrassing. I think to this day, Blair is very much hated. But if you look at Blair's um, kind of portfolio, he's worth billions, and then you kind of add two and two together, and he doesn't earn billions from his
no,
salary from being a prime minister. He obviously got money from the military industrial
right,
complex. He's obviously got money from a lot of people who profited in the Iraq War, and a lot of people did profit from the Iraq War, especially the military industrial complex
sure,
and the defense companies and things like that. And now Tony Blair's worth billions. He's got properties all over the world. His son's a billionaire as well, and it just goes to show you just know the people who are on about that war. They all came out rich at
yeah,
the end. And you did mention something about the Blackwater, and I wanted to kind of talk to you a bit more about Blackwater. I
mm,
mean, uh, when I was doing some investigations myself, I found that 4 Blackwater employees were sent to jail because they were killing innocent civilians,
mm,
and I'm sure many other Blackwater people did it, but they weren't caught. But these 4 guys who got sent to jail, but then Trump pardoned them a few years later, and
did he? Yeah,
yeah, he pardoned them about I think in his second year, or once Trump came on, and he pardoned them, and they were only inside for like a couple of years, and you can tell that the military industrial complex must have tapped Trump on the shoulder and said, "Listen,
sure.
you need to pardon these guys because we have a lot more wars coming up over the next few years, and we don't want any of this to be kind of to put a black mark on us." So Trump says, "All right, don't worry, I'll pardon these guys."
Yeah, I think presidential pardon shouldn't even exist.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
insane. It's literally insane. Like, he goes, oh, this guy over here, okay, you're good. No, it should not happen. He shouldn't have that kind of
yeah.
power.
But I've read some real scary stories about Blackwater guys and how they're completely above the law,
Yes.
and they can pretty much do whatever they want, shoot whoever they want, do whatever they
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
And what's your experience with them, and what's your
I've only seen them a few times, and they basically drove around in their Nissan 4x4s with the guns on the top, backwards Nike hats, glasses. They grow their beards out to match. They have like the scarf and everything, so they have their
yeah,
own. They're not in uniform like we. They have camouflage, but they're not in uniform like us. They basically do whatever the hell they want, and they're getting paid $120,000 a year.
yeah,
So they're
yeah,
making way more than I'm making. I'm making like $1,800 or something, and this guy's running around doing whatever he wants, and making 10 times more than I'm making per month. So it is a sad thing because they did do things like they did do war crime activities there for sure. And they're not, who are they accountable for? They're civilians. They're private organizations. They're not necessarily attached to the U.S. government, taking orders from colonels or anything like this or generals. They're just literally doing what they're hired to do by whoever hired them. So it could be Halliburton could have hired them. So I don't know exactly all the details about them, but I do know they did whatever the hell they wanted, and they looked like they could do. They just looked that part. So
they did. Yeah, it's one of those watching those Hollywood movies, and you've seen these Hollywood movies, and you see these Blackwater guys and armed to the teeth, and yeah, it's absolutely crazy how these guys got away with it.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I wanted to ask you whether you've seen some of the tapes that Julian Assange released, and I wanted to talk to you about one in particular where a group of Iraqi kids were in a minivan and they got shot to smithereens. Um, Innocent people, bystanders being shot everywhere. I mean, these tapes are still on YouTube. If you kind of
the
log in.
the attack chopper tapes, right? Where
Yeah,
they're
that's the
shooting
one.
up.
Yeah,
I've seen the one where the cameramen, they're like, just give us
yeah,
the, just pull out a gun, man. They're shooting up everywhere. They're clearly unarmed,
yeah.
and they're shooting this guy up. And then the other one you're talking about, the vans getting. I think the kids survived. I think they actually
Did the
survived.
kids survive?
I
I think
believe
the
so.
one girl survived, but
Yeah,
there was a couple of kids in there who
yeah.
didn't. I
I
think one
think
girl
at least
survived. Yeah,
one person certainly
yeah,
survived.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, no, I've seen the. That's what I'm saying. After I got, if you asked me earlier, what made me change, or I guess we could
Mm,
segue into this. Things like that. These videos coming out. My research into Fallujah, learning that we used white phosphorus on civilians, or even just in the area, and I'm like, well, what does this thing do? Oh, it burns you when it touches you, and if you use a lot of it, it could burn you to a crisp, literally into a
mm,
skeleton. Like
yep,
dark skin, completely black melted face. I'm like, how is this not a war crime? Hello, how are these
yeah.
not chemical weapons? I thought we're supposed to stop Saddam, who has chemical weapons and mass destruction weapons, but we're using them. Aren't we the good guys? And that's why I started realizing something's not going. That was toward the end of my service, like a year left in my service.
Yep,
So I learned that. I was like, man, this is not looking good.
that's right. And beginning of the war, I've also read reports how some of these tanks and weapons were using depleted
Yeah,
uranium, and these would be going. These were basically PS armor, like
yes,
nobody's business. But the problem is they would also be spreading radiation as
yeah.
well.
There's a
And
lot of birth defects in Iraq.
yeah,
I don't know if we used it this time around when I went. We
mm,
certainly used it in Gulf War One.
yeah,
But we could
yeah,
have used it now. I mean, I can't confirm that because I'm not a tank guy. I'm not an operator of the tanks. But
mm,
yeah, you're right. What happens is they put the depleted uranium on the tip of it, so it goes so super hot, it melts right through like butter.
yeah,
And it just
yeah,
but there's radiation and there's a lot of birth defects. You can see if you Google Iraq birth defect babies, it's
mm,
horrific images of babies, huge heads, and cancer
yeah, yeah,
eyeballs are turned in and
yeah. I
out. It's
saw that as
disgusting.
well.
Yeah, no, I feel so terrible for the Iraqi people, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because
Mm,
even though the Ukraine-Russia war is different than that, it's still going to devastate these countries, or Ukraine specifically. So we want to avoid all war, but uh,
exactly.
the thing about war is once you get there, the truth, now it's survival mode. So
Yeah.
this soldier A and then soldier B. Well, doesn't matter who's right or wrong. Someone's got to go in a body bag, and they're going to, that's the tragedy of war. We have to prevent that tragedy from happening because that's the worst part of it. Didn't have to happen.
Sure.
If we do if someone came out, for example, I know a guy named Phil Girardi. He's a former CIA counterterrorist specialist. He resigned because he knew that they were telling lies about weapons of mass destruction. So he's also another person running around telling the truth, like Colonel McGregor and stuff. But he resigned his post, saying, "Well, this is all lies. What are you guys talking about? I can't work here," and he left. So there are people who already knew, but is the media going to say that? Of course not. So we were pushed into this war again with these ties to Al Qaeda, which weren't true, weapons of mass destruction, and all this nonsense. And the tragedy is, once it's there, though, once the troops are deployed, we don't know. They're not telling us, "Hey, we're lying," No, we just think everything's told that we're true.
Exactly. And I remember growing up in those days, and I was quite young, but I could see what was happening. If you stand out and say something for Iraq, if you stand up and say, "Oh, hang on a second, you know, why is this happening? Why is that happening?" People will basically call you Hitler lover, or because they were they were calling Saddam Hitler basically in the West.
Everyone's Hitler.
Yeah, everyone's Hitler. Yeah, and in the UK, in the UK press is very they're very brutal. So they were calling they were saying Saddam is the next Hitler, and and if you say anything, try and say anything good about Iraq, or if you try and question the narrative, you would immediately get called a Nazi lover or a Hitler lover, and so people would not say anything. People would shut up. And the same thing's happening now. If you say anything for against if you say anything against Ukraine, you just get called
Putin shill,
Putin
fascist,
shill. Exactly.
imperialist. Yeah. Well, back then, remember Bush said, "You're either with us or you're with the terrorists."
Yeah.
There was the ultimatum there. So people are like, "Oh, I guess I'm with us." And remember we changed well, not you guys, but my country, freedom fries instead of French fries because the French were resistant. Like, so stupid. It's so childish, but stuff like that works, unfortunately.
Yeah, it works. I mean, look how French have become now. I mean, they're completely not saying anything. They're completely subservient to Biden. They have to be very careful what they say because they don't want their freedom fries to
well, they are
come back again.
protesting. They're heavily protesting, and even a lot of them want to get out of NATO. But of course,
yeah.
The only thing positive out of there was Macron saying we don't want World War III. So that's a positive thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, so
sure. So what would you say would be your biggest things that made you question things and question why you were in Iraq? And
well, like I said, when I did the research on Fallujah, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. And then, just actually a funny thing is one of my friends' brothers, I had roommates, obviously in the barracks, sent a DVD at the time of Loose Change. I never saw 9/11 ever again. After that, I saw it on television, never saw it again. But this Loose Change DVD, I was like, let's take a look. And I was like, wow, imagine this is true. Like my own government would do this to itself to launch a war. It just opened my mind to all sorts of possibilities. And I was reading about Fallujah. I was like, well, what if we're the bad guys? What if this is true, this video? And we don't have to go into conspiracy theories or anything like that. But I think most people are like, yeah, this doesn't make sense today. Back then, you're called crazy. Now everyone's like, you're an idiot if you believe it's the official narrative. But that made me question everything as well. And even just like, well, George Bush is a Christian. Why would he lie? Like, why would he be a liar and cause war and kill people? So like, wait, maybe he's not a Christian. Maybe he's just a liar. Maybe he's pretending to be Christian. I was so naive back then. And so when I got out of the Marine Corps and went to community college, I studied philosophy, communications, and opened my mind to everything. And so my whole worldview changed just studying philosophy about everything else and going through all sorts of conspiracy loopholes to see how this world actually works. So I was like, yeah, this is terrible that we're lied to. And then it eventually came out there were no weapons of mass destruction, confirming what I was thinking. I was like, okay, well, there's that. And that changed everything for me, obviously, there at that point. I was like, well, they're even admitting it now. And so I was lied to. My friends were lied to. People died for no reason. 1 million Iraqis killed. We destroyed Iraq. People have PTSD. People are coming home in body bags. Like, this is terrible. For what? All for lies. So now I don't trust my government at all, whatsoever.
Yeah, and you hear stories about burn pits as well, how
Yes.
lots of Marines are coming back with major diseases and major
Yeah, we
problems.
had them at Al-Assad. So I actually did a few burn pit runs, but I was just dumping the garbage into the pits. I wasn't burning them. But yeah, we would just burn the garbage. So we'd have
Mhm.
these huge like sand dunes that we'd just throw all the garbage in there and burn them. And no wonder why these guys are getting cancer. If you're the ones, I would thank God I didn't burn any, but that's what we
Yeah,
were doing. We're just dumping it in the sand and just burning everything there, all the plastic, all the stuff, So it was a mess over there with that. But
sure.
yeah,
I, I mean, can you tell me some maybe how these Marines get treated when they come back with PTSD or cancer or problems? Do the government look after them, or do
well,
they
yeah.
just
So when I got back, I thought it was normal. And the guy's like, "Hey," at the VA, he's like, "Are you claiming anything?" I'm like, "Claiming what? What are you talking about? I'm fine. Because you think you're fine, but you just got back.
Mm,
So you make your claims anyway. Like any problems with your back, any problem with your foot, any suicidal thoughts. You're like, oh, you just no, I'm okay. Or you make a few claims. It wasn't until after I got back and started realizing I couldn't fit in. I was very dumb. I was very depressed. I didn't know what to think anymore. Because look, you're being told what to do every day for
yep.
4 years. Like you have orders to take, and you got to be there. And so all of a sudden, hey, you're on your own now. Thank you. By the way, coming back from a war zone, you're already messed up. You're seeing death and destruction all around you. That's already traumatic.
Mm,
Boot camp is traumatic, believe it or not, because you go to boot camp, they strip you of your personality. You become a machine, literally, right? So, funny story. I was in boot camp. I spit on the floor. He
yep.
goes, "Get that spit, put it in your pocket right now," with the frog voice. And I picked up my spit, put it right in my pocket without thinking. That's how much they train you. You just do what you're told. If he said jump through a window, I would have jumped through a window.
Yep.
And that's the kind of instant obedience to orders. That's what they call it. They make you do things back and forth, run this way, run that way, sit down, stand up, so that anytime they give you an order, you just do it. So if someone says shoot that crowd, you're going to shoot that crowd. So that one time I picked up my own spit from the parade deck and put it in my pocket. It's comical. It is. I mean, it's like, oh God, did I just do that? Yeah, I just did it. That's the obedience they put into you. And so you come out of that, you're free
Mm,
now. I'm 22. I'm leaving Camp Lejeune. Finally, I'm free. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with myself? I have no purpose. Why am I alive? And these kind of things lead to suicides every day.
yeah.
22 people kill themselves every day. Now,
Wow.
I went to community college. So when I got back, first I went to Italy to go see my family. I did it for 3 weeks. I started community college. I did pretty damn good. I got a 3.63 GPA my first semester or whatever. Then I did my second 3.83 GPA. So I'm like, oh, I got discipline. But then at the end, here comes May, where all the exams come in. I dropped out for no reason. I just said, oh, I'm done with this. I'm sick of it. It bores me. So I go back. I go party in the summer because I remember I missed college. So I'm like, oh, I like to go to these surf clubs at the beach,
Yep.
where there's like girls and stuff because I'm young, party and drinking. I missed all this stuff. I didn't go through sororities or anything like that. So I'm like, this is okay. Let me do this stuff. I'm like, maybe I should try school again. So I go to my college, community college, Raritan Valley. I said, look, I have PTSD. Could you put me back in the same courses and forgive my withdrawals? They go, yeah, sure. Same exact courses, same teachers. Like, hey, you're back. I go, yeah, I'm back again. And the same thing happened. Here comes May, final exams. I was like, nah, this is not for me. So I quit. So then I started to do other things. My friend Dustin owns an energy consulting firm, right? You save people money with energy. Literally, there's no cap on how much money you can make. No cap. You can be a millionaire if you want.
Yep.
Unfortunately, to be a salesman, you have to be motivated. You have to be, disciplined, consistent. Well, when you have PTSD and don't know it, you're manic one day, depressed the next day. You're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
motivated. You're waking up at 1 p.m. instead of 8 o'clock. These were the things I was going through, and I didn't understand what was wrong with me. Like, why do I keep getting sick of stuff, getting bored of life? Why am I manic and depressing? Why do I have this hypervigilance? If I hear a firecracker or I'm in a restaurant, I'm always looking at the door, waiting for someone to come in with a machine gun. What's wrong? Why am I having nightmares? What is going on with me? I didn't understand what was happening. So anything I tried to do, massage therapy class, halfway through it, I dropped out. I just couldn't finish anything whatsoever. I said, what the hell is this? So I went back, got examined. You have PTSD. I'm like, really? I didn't know that. So then you make the claims and, you got to fight for it because they always give you lower ratings. And then they try to deny you, then they give you a rating and a fight it. But anyway, So the help is out there, but they don't always tell you, you know. And by the way, they don't even debrief you going back to civilian life. It's not like, okay, you guys, your service is up. You're going to go to this class for a week to get you back to normal. It's nothing like that. You're free, go by, and go right back to the civilian world, which you're not going to fit in after. She's in Normandy. Be like, hey guys, hey, who are you? I'm from the future. Yeah, what are you doing here? Listen, I want to show you the good news is you're going to win the war. Yay! The bad news is you're going to be called Nazis, and all this stuff's going to happen to you in the next 50 years. Your countries are going to be destroyed. You're going to cultural mark. They just turn around. They wouldn't fight this war, World War II. They wouldn't fight any war if they knew it was going to happen. But they don't know the plans of the powers that be. They don't understand how they orchestrate wars and engineer these things. But yeah, I mean, in regards to Ukraine, what was the question again? You asked if
they'll fight till every single last Ukrainian.
This is the thing about it. It's almost like no one, Russia can't just lose this. They can't lose it, and neither can Ukraine in a sense. But the Ukrainians are probably going to lose because they're not going to be able to have infinite support forever. Okay, at some point, the Europeans are going to get sick and tired of freezing to death, paying high prices of gas and everything else. The Americans is what we're already sick of it. The Americans, I mean, our politicians aren't, but I am. I don't know a single person who's like, yeah, we got to send more money. We're like, hey, why don't you give it to us? We need it. We don't have drinking water in Flint, Michigan. We have problems here. We have border problems. We need this money. Stop sending it to Ukraine. So we're sick of that. But Europe is going to, I think, they're not all unified anyway. I mean, Italy is saying no more arms to Ukraine. Other countries are saying, the same thing. And it's just that, can the Ukrainians fight? Can they make it like a Vietnam for Russia? Yeah, I'm not saying the Ukrainians can't fight. Of course they can, especially with their weapons. They can't win this on their own. And Russia will not allow Ukraine to sit there and be hostile. They're going to neutralize Ukraine at all costs. I believe that. So that's why in my video that went viral, I said, we got to call for peace.
Yeah.
You might not like the terms. You might not like the fact these regions were annexed, but it's either those or a whole country is getting destroyed. And as J.J. Mersheimer said, and I've seen many of his interviews, the Russians will turn Ukraine into rubble if they have to, because they can't allow, it's a threat to them. It's a security threat to their homeland. So it's best for Ukraine to stay neutral. They don't have to stick to NATO. They don't have to do anything for NATO. So if NATO wants to do something crazy, they don't have to be part of it. And they're not enemies with Russia. They could just be that neutral country in the middle there and just sell grain and whatever other products that they sell, and live happily. What's the problem with that? There is no problem with that. The only problem that happened is when the United States wants to play coup in 2014 and, destroy all the agreements that were made and become hostile to Russia. So listen, a lot of people are like, you don't know, why doesn't Putin just leave? This is what I get all the time. The war will end when Putin leaves. Okay, so he leaves, and then what guarantees the people that they were murdering the whole time for the last 8 years are safe? And all the shellings and the genocide, right. Nothing. So he's not going to leave these people behind. And he said that this is off the table. Is that fair? I don't know. I'm not going to go to World War III for land disputes. This is none of my business. I'm an American. I have nothing to do with this stuff. Unfortunately, my government, the treacherous people in government, they have something to do with it. I don't know if it's money laundering. I don't know what they're doing with biolabs, but I have nothing to do with it. My wife and kids have nothing. You don't have anything to do with it. So what the hell are we doing here? It's a special interest war. But Russia, let me say this, they also think they're fighting for their existence because we've heard Biden say we're going to take out Putin. We've heard others saying we're going to balkanize Russia. And these are people saying, it's not just people making it up, some random YouTuber. These are people in power saying it. We got to get rid of Putin. We should assassinate him. What is he going to not take this seriously? So, again, for me, the war itself is terrible. I understand when people say, well, Putin invaded. Yeah, why did he invade?
Exactly.
Why did he? It's like but here's the thing. The media goes, he invaded. That's where they start the timeline.
Yep. It's about good. It's about bad and good, and you got the bad guy and the good guy. It's like a typical Hollywood movie where you have a bad guy doing bad things, but no film in Hollywood explain why he's doing it or what his motivations are. It's just good. It's just black or white, really. I wrote this really important question I want to ask you actually, and it's quite important because it's gonna lead to my point. So obviously in Iraq, one of the main reasons U.S. military doctrine had changed over the years, and I know you were there in the first and second Iraq war, and I noticed from a distance that, in the first Iraq war, American power, they completely blew Iraq out of the water. Absolute show of
Yes.
power. The whole world was in awe. But in the second Iraq war, things changed, and I saw a big difference in the way United States was fighting, and they changed their whole doctrine into fighting terrorists rather than fighting a
Yes.
big war.
Insurgents. Yeah.
Yeah, insurgents. So you see every single day there's IED device blowing up tanks, blowing up armored vehicles, and there was a lot of these suicide bombings attacks, and I believe the United States completely changed their military during the Iraq time to fight insurgents rather than fight a big war like with China or Russia, for
Hmm.
example. And so they put a lot of their funding against fighting insurgents, drone warfare. They obviously put um, extra kind of gear on their tanks and armored units to kind of make them more secure, especially the underneath.
Yeah, we didn't
And
have them when I went the first time. We
yeah,
didn't have
yeah,
any armor. We had nothing. It was
no,
terrible.
yeah,
And
I think
and I almost got blown up by an IED.
really, oh wow, I'll
Well,
get into that
yeah,
really,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm trying to make the point is the US has been fighting these insurgents, these terrorists in Iraq, Afghanistan, the second Iraq war. But now they seem to be friendly with a lot of these Al Qaedas. They're
Mhm.
friendly with them in Syria, and there's obviously quite a few uh, Al Qaeda guys fighting for Ukraine as well.
Yes,
And and my biggest worry is a lot of these weapons that's going into Ukraine, and this is everybody knows this. I mean, even CNBC made this documentary about it, but they got taken down because the government probably told them to take it down. But a lot of these weapons are falling into the wrong hands. So imagine a Stinger missile. You know, if one of these terrorists gets hold of a Stinger missile, and these terrorists, they've got a lot of money, right? I mean,
sure.
these Islamic terrorists, these Al Qaeda terrorists, they've got a lot of money because they make a lot of money through the drug trade. And since USA left Afghanistan, the drug, the poppies, the heroin trade has gone through the roof in Afghanistan. I mean, I know because I have a couple of Afghan friends who are in UK, and they tell me exactly what's going on in Afghanistan. Since US has left Afghanistan, there's a big hole there, and these warlords, these Al Qaedas are now growing heroin again. They're growing opium and all sorts of stuff, and they are
Isn't
they
the
are making.
Taliban against that though? The Taliban's against the opium, right?
No, yeah, but the Taliban don't control all the country. They
Right, right.
control
Yeah,
certain
yeah,
parts
yeah,
of it.
yeah.
But they control about maybe 60% of it. There's still
Mhm.
40% which is
Yeah,
controlled by warlords and Al Qaeda and stuff. But United States doesn't have right now. They just want to wash their hands. They're not really interested in that. They don't care. But the problem is 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 turning in full circle again. So they're making money out of the drugs trade. They're buying weapons in the black market, and a lot of these weapons that are going into Ukraine, that they're going on the black market, the dark
sure.
web, and they're falling into the wrong hands. And what my biggest worry is Al Qaeda. These Al Qaeda guys, in a few years' time, all armed with Stinger missiles, start taking down airplanes and
Yeah, airliners. Yeah, that's maybe.
airliners. I mean, what's your thought on that? Because I think that's probably my biggest worry. And the United States media is completely silent about it. They're
Sure.
completely silent about it. The government's completely silent about it. And I'm hearing stories about they're sending some U.S. Delegates to Ukraine to audit where these weapons are going. But it's too little, too late. This war has been going on for like 8 months. I mean, what
Yeah,
is
well,
the point of
we
saying?
have 4,700 airborne men there too now, apparently. So
Yeah,
ready to fight. No, but no, you're right. The black market weapons, all that. I mean, look, how many times did we mistakenly drop trucks and to Al Qaeda when we were fighting in Syria? Remember, like all of a sudden, oh, whoops, we dropped this over here and they got it. They have all our tanks and all our stuff. I mean, they basically had digital camouflage too. Where did they get that from? It's very interesting to see. These are our assets. Once you understand that Al Qaeda, ISIS, these are our assets. These are our people. We're funding them with black op money, and we're giving them weapons. They're being shuttled through. Like I said, a lot of these weapons aren't even reaching the front. So it's like a big laundering thing over there as well.
yeah,
But no, that is the worst case scenario. Is that these people will get Stinger missiles, start taking out civilian airliners. I mean, that could happen anywhere with that.
yeah.
It's
Of course,
insane.
of course.
Um, But the thing about the tragedy again is that not only is that going to happen with this, this could be used forever. Because remember, as you said, the war changed on the second tour. We're fighting insurgents, right? Now, if the Ukrainians are defeated militarily on the ground, no more Ukrainian soldiers, they'll just become insurgents, and
Yeah.
that's harder to fight because
Yeah.
insurgents could be a guy walking down the street,
Yeah.
regular clothing, all of a sudden pulls out a rocket. That's why it's harder to fight that than an army that has soldiers in the same uniform. They have bands that are blue or red, depending on what side you're on. Insurgency is worse. It's like any person you see can have an AK-47. Anyone driving is a suicide bomber. It's guerrilla warfare. It's way more unpredictable, especially in urban areas. So that's the worst case. So the worst again. So Ukraine could lose, but the military-industrial complex could make it a Vietnam for these people. They could make it a Vietnam for Russia. So the best case scenario is to call for peace and have someone in that government, not Zelensky, take over that's neutral, literally neutral, and will help clean the area out of these insurgents and Al-Qaeda terrorists and all that other stuff. But is that going to happen? I don't know. I mean, Russia could be in this for a long haul. They might have to take all of Ukraine and install a puppet for themselves. But Putin doesn't want. He doesn't want all of Ukraine. He just wants it to be neutral. Because remember, a lot of people say he's going to take all of Ukraine. I'm like, are you guys not thinking he wants a buffer state? If he takes all of Ukraine, he's right next to NATO.
Yeah,
that's not what he wants. He
exactly.
wants he's just a neutral new Ukraine. That's all he wants. Yep. And by the way, this war is taking longer on Russia's side because they actually care about the Ukrainians.
Yeah,
they see them as brothers.
Yeah,
they do. But when you take the Ukrainians and you pollute them with this neo-Nazi Russia anti-Russia phobia, they're going to not see Russians as the same. And the fact that the Russians did invade, it makes them the aggressor in the mind, and technically it makes them the aggressor anyway. And so it's much easier to kill them than try to save, you know what I mean? So it's a tragedy. And I was on Crosstalk a few days ago on RT, and one of our guests, one of the guys on the panel with me said, they've created Russia-phobia to the point, even if this ends, it's going to be decades of it anyway. The hatred has been installed in the minds of these people. Even if this conflict ends, it'll still be there. And that's the sad part, So that could lead to terrorism and insurgencies in Ukraine. So it's going to have to be neutralized. And that's why this war went from special operation to, okay, it looks like we got to go all in. And the Russians will have to go all. They cannot lose this war. They can't just back away from what happened. And the Ukrainians obviously can't lose either. Obviously, they want to keep their sovereignty, but I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately, for them, So...
Well, they are losing a lot of people. I mean,
yes.
The estimates are between 100,000 to 200,000 they've lost, and about 400,000 injured.
But listen, you wouldn't see that on Twitter. Oh, the Ukrainians are killing everyone. The Russians have no missiles. They're dying. They don't have any. They're all drunk. That's what you see on Twitter.
Yeah,
you don't see the casualties of the Ukrainians or anything else. It's like obvious something's wrong over there. They have to get people from Syria to fight terrorists who get, by the way, the one guy was on video saying, we're getting $1,500 a month from France or something. Like they're admitting that they're getting paid by the West. So it's like, wow, so that's why the Ukrainians, they're in a desperate situation, right? And when you're in a desperate situation, this is where you start doing assassinations, terror attacks on bridges, false flags with the dirty bomb, which may happen, even staging massacres. Like I believe Bucha was there, what they did. I don't think the Russians did it. So you look into it, it's kind of strange, the timing of what happened. So you see,
because nobody's talking about it now. It's all quiet.
No. The first it was everywhere. Oh my God, Russia.
Yeah.
They said, okay, why don't you send your investigator? No, we're good. Well, what the hell? I mean, this is the time to show the planet that Russia did this massacre. But they didn't. It was Azov, because Azov said, we'll kill every we'll hunt them down like pigs.
Yeah.
And there's videos out there. For those of you who watch gore, they're out there. You could see. And look, Russia did, the guy Wagner castrated the guy. Okay, is that Putin's orders? No. Wagner is like Blackwater, right? I would say do whatever they want. So that guy did something terrible. They sold that to the whole world. Look at this man getting castrated. Oh my God! Why don't you show what the Ukrainians did? Why don't you show them? I saw a video. I think it was years ago during this the Donbass conflict, where they crucified a Russian on a cross and lit him on fire. Like is that a war? I think it's a war crime, right? What's that?
Yeah,
so there's those videos there. I saw videos of them shooting civilians trying to escape the conflict, just shooting people in cars. That's not Russians doing it. That's Ukrainians. The Azov, you're traitors, killing the people, collaborate. And we all saw the time they shot the Russians in the kneecaps. You
Yeah,
know, we saw that for sure. But this is the tragedy of war. Things will happen. People get upset. You know, if your friends are being killed by Ukrainians, you might retaliate. I mean, the Americans did it in Iraq. You know, people lost their friends they've been in boot camp with, friends with since high school. Friend gets blown up, they're going to throw a grenade in the house and maybe kill a whole family, you know, out of anger. Sad. That's why we have to prevent this stuff.
that's right. I mean, I remember seeing women and children in Mariupol being holed up underground in those factories.
Mm,
And if Russia did that, the West would be saying stuff like, "Oh, they're keeping them hostage. Look
yeah.
how inhumane they are." Blah blah blah. But because it's Azov is doing it, they're making the Azov sound like they're a bunch of heroes, and they're obviously holding these kids and women by force because the whole point is if they let them go, they're just going to be, Russia's just going to blow the whole place to smithereens and they'll all be dead. And that's the only reason they've kept these women and children there, so Russia doesn't blow the whole place up.
Right. It's the human shields.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And when they were released, all the West was saying, oh, these Azovs are now being transferred and they've been released, but they're not being released. They're going to jail. And it's funny how the West just turn, twist the words, and they're making the Azov sound like they're heroes. And it got really bad at one point when I was walking down the streets in UK, and there was a couple of kids playing around with toy guns, and one of them was like, "Take that, Putin! Take that!"
Yeah.
and, and the other guy was like, no, I'm the Azov, no, I want
Yeah.
to be the Azov, I want to be the Azov. Oh God, obviously
We
these
have no
kids are
idea.
completely being brainwashed. But yeah, it's really it's crazy how the West works. And I want to also talk about your experience with what you said about the IED, and
Hmm.
do you want to kind of share what happened
Yeah. So
with that?
on my first tour, we'll be invaded. We were driving. I was in a Humvee. So even though I was a combat engineer, we do convoy security. So we're moving it up in a convoy. I was in a Humvee with my friends. I was on the 240 gun. The 240 Golf is a machine gun. And so we're just driving up the highway, and all of a sudden, pop! And we go, what the hell was it? And we see this white thing just go like this. It looked like a napkin or something. I don't know. It just went pop. And we're like, whoa. And my buddy was driving, my buddy Palmer. He's like, holy shit, what the hell was that? He's like, woo. We're all like excited. Ah, like just the adrenaline pump.
Yeah,
Like, what the hell was that? We had no idea. We just kept going. So EOD went back. EOD is exploded ordnance disposal,
yeah,
explosive ordnance disposal. I think I'm saying it right. Anyway, so they go back. They're the bomb guys. They go, yeah, actually, there was an IED there and misfired. So thank God it was, a misfire. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here talking, or I'd be here completely maimed or something. So that happened there. And I've seen other things happen too. I mean, I've seen Marines get hit by a mortar in front of me, get killed. They weren't my unit, but still,
yeah,
fellow Marines. That was sad. So I've seen death and destruction. I've seen the awesome power of our military. When I say awesome, I don't mean like this is great. I mean like holy God, like it's very powerful. The Iraqis had
yeah.
no chance at
Of
all
course, yeah.
whatsoever to even. They would surrender battalions worth. Like,
Mm.
hey, we surrender to you, tank battalion, just to give up. These were the stories we were told. I don't know if they were true, but this is the stuff we were being told. Which I wouldn't doubt actually, because why would they want to die? They have no shot against us whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching it on live television, and I was a kid, and I was like in awe, and it was called the shock and awe,
Yeah,
and the Iraqis had no chance. And I'm just wondering if Russia wanted to do that to Ukraine, they can easily do it. They
yeah,
got the
yeah,
air force, they got the missiles, they got the
yeah,
weapons, they can easily do that. But they're doing things slowly. They're going, they're basically doing it methodically. They're trying to avoid as much civilian deaths as possible.
yes,
Like right now they're getting rid of people in Kherson. Obviously, they're gearing up for a big offensive there, but
right,
they want to make sure civilians don't get hurt. So there's a lot of civilians getting evacuated. So they're making sure of these things before they move on. I mean, yeah, I mean, when I saw that the power of the United States in the first Gulf War, I was in awe. But in the second Gulf War with Iraq, Iraq had nothing at that point. All
mhm.
of their weapons were dismantled. They had no air force. They had no missiles, and in the second, it was just massacre in the second one. And I was just watching. I
Well,
was
you want
thinking,
to
oh,
talk about war crimes? There's something called the Highway of Death. Go look at that. All civilian cars destroyed by us completely annihilated. Just the whole highway, just dead people. Like they're just obviously trying to escape. I think we lit them all up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just look that up if you want to see some tragedy there. And again, we all know what was her name? Was it Albright? Madeline Albright?
Yeah, Madly
Was it?
Albright.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's worth it. 500,000 children starving. These are the psychopaths in power. This is the
Yeah.
problem with
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
people. They have no empathy. They're like monsters, literally demons if they were real, right? They're demons on Earth here.
Mm,
It's sickening, and you would think there'd be revolutions from this, but no. People are detached from it. They have their own problems at home. They're swamped with their mortgage and debt and all this other stuff. So people don't have the energy to fight for this. And they're like, well, at
that's
least it's
right.
not me being bombed. At least it's not, well, maybe it will be you one day. God forbid, something happens. But, that's why it's important we push for peace and push against these wars, because it could happen to us one day. America's lucky. Listen, the last time we got bombed by an army, like a military, it was what, the Revolutionary War. I mean,
Mm,
we're not running around, hiding under desks in case something happens. We don't, the Americans don't understand what war is like. They don't, yeah, they understand 9/11, they understand Pearl Harbor, but that's not war at a scale where there people are invading your cities and you're
yep.
under military siege. They don't understand that at all. We're so pampered over here in the West, in my country specifically. Europeans know war; they know World War II, but we
Yep.
don't. So, like, that's why I think Americans are desensitized. Well, not desensitized; they don't know it, but they're so pampered and living in a bubble. Like, oh, whatever, yeah, well,
Mm.
whatever. God, it's like you're lucky, but you should have empathy for people who are in those situations.
Sure. So, as an American, what do you think about what's happening to Europe? And obviously, Europe has been very much along with all of this, and a lot of them are, shooting themselves in the foot. They're following
Yeah.
Biden to off a cliff as well. I mean, do Americans care about what's happening to Europe? And I think you can see, like, with all the inflation, all the gas prices, everyone's not sure whether they're going to keep warm during this winter, whether they're going to have enough gas, or whether they're going to have enough
Well,
food.
do the Americans care about the Europeans? I don't know. I mean, most Americans are oblivious to what's happening. They still think it's Putin's price hike. There's my
Yeah,
country's so divided; they don't even know what's happening anymore. It's the Democrats, it's the Republicans. That's all they know politically. Many of them don't understand what's going on in the world, which is ironic because nobody knew where even Ukraine was. I make a joke. Most Americans don't even know how to spell Ukraine, but now it's change your profile picture to the Ukrainian flag and send money and fight for Ukraine, democracy and love. But they're just doing what the media tells them to do,
yeah,
unfortunately. Are we going to feel it? Yeah, we're going to feel everything. We feel it at the pump already. I have family in Italy because like I said, I was born. Half of my family's in Italy. I hope they're going to be okay, but Italy is going to suffer. I think all of Europe's going to suffer if they don't stop this war as soon as possible. And that's what I'm saying to the Ukrainians. A lot of them are deluded that we're going to win. I'm like, you can't win by yourself. And even with all these arms you're getting, you're still not going to win. So you got to realize maybe you should get rid of Zelensky. Maybe you should get rid of him or something. Put someone else in there who's going to talk to the Russians or something. Because like I said, it's better to lose 4 regions than your whole country. I know it sucks. I know it's not cool. You don't understand. Every time I talk to you're not one of us. You're an American. You don't understand Putin. You don't. I don't.
Uh, y- yeah. You got to look at the big picture. If Ukraine had settled a peace deal or implemented the Minsk agreements like they said they would, none of this would have happened. If they said that they're going to stay neutral, they're not going to join NATO, none of this would have happened. And again, the media likes to kind of paint it as Russia's fault. They've gone in with for no apparent reason whatsoever. It's all about black and white, or who's bad, who's good, but they don't look at why, the motivation, why Russia has done this. And if the ball was on the other foot, for example, like Russia decided to put nuclear missiles on Cuba again,
Yeah.
I mean, how would the US react? Because I remember Blinken was in Congress, and Congress asked him that same question. Congress said, why are you allowing Ukraine to join NATO? Why can't you allow them why can't you tell them to stay neutral? And Blinken was like, oh, they're a sovereign country. They can do whatever they want. They can join whoever they want. It's their sovereignty. It's their choice. was it Cuba's choice to host
Yeah,
Russian
yeah.
nuclear weapons?
Yeah, my
Mm,
my mic cut. I hit the mic and I cut off. I don't know if during my rant there it cut off, but
oh,
anyway.
oh
No,
no, I
to
can
answer your
still hear
question,
you. Yeah,
to
and the
answer your
same.
question,
Yeah,
go ahead.
same thing with China. If China decides to put nuclear weapons on, like Haiti or maybe Nicaragua or something, then US will be like, no, we're not having that. We'll go to war. We
Yeah,
are
we have
not
the
gonna.
Monroe Doctrine, but
That's
Russia,
right.
who cares what they want? Who cares about their safe? That's how it is with us. It's hypocrisy. American exceptionalism is being the greatest hypocrites on the planet. Who, by the way, we're the only people who use nuclear weapons on civilians. We're the only people overthrowing governments for the last, I don't know how many years now, decades. We've been at war, what are we, 247 years old, and we've been at war for like 220 years. 96% of our existence, we're killing people or funding the killing of people. Who the hell are we to say anything about any invasions at all? We're the biggest hypocrites on the planet, literally. We are the most dangerous empire in the last 70, 80 years, for sure. Now, to respond to that, yeah, if I always tell people that too. What if China put missiles in Mexico or something? That the response is, well, what if Mexico invaded Texas and killed people, and then would you make a deal with them? Like, look, this is a very bad situation, right? But Mexico is not going to, Texas is not going to defeat Mexico by itself, And by the way, why did Mexico do that? Well, maybe people in Texas were killing people who were there in Mexico. There's more to the story, like you said. They don't, as I said earlier in the interview, they start with invasion.
Yeah.
That's it. Invasion, madman, Hitler, Putler, now they call him. He just out of nowhere invades Ukraine for no reason. And then not only that, they're going to take all of Ukraine. He's going to take all of Europe. And at the other hand, he has no missiles left and his army sucks. Well, which one is it? Either he could take all of Europe because he's a madman with all the armaments, or he doesn't have anything and he's incompetent. Which one? You can't have both, but they're telling you both. That's the funny part. So no, I think this. Look, if the Europeans or the NATO thought Putin was really going to take all, they would have declared war instantly. It wouldn't have
Of
been a
course.
proxy war.
Yeah.
Like, all right, Putin, you got to go. They would have done something like that. They wouldn't say, oh, okay, we'll see what the Ukrainians can do. No, this is clear that no one buys it, no one believes it, and no one thinks Ukraine can win. Nobody thinks they're going to win on their own. Nobody. So they're going to have help, and that help's going to run out because no one has infinite resources, and the people are getting sick. There's in France, again, there's parades over, not parades, protests there. There's protests in other countries in Europe too. It's not like Europe, or at least the people aren't unified with this. The politicians, of course, this is their war,
Yeah.
but the people are sick of this crap. So,
The media still believes Ukraine
oh
will
yeah,
win. I
they're
mean, it was
yeah,
only 2 days ago I was reading the Evening Standard and I saw an article about Russian people leaving the country because they don't want to be
yeah.
called up to join the army. So
Mm-hmm.
apparently they're all running to the borders and things like that, and they're losing. And apparently there's a big nobody wants this war in Russia. Everyone's leaving the army and the Ukraine's winning and all sorts of crappy
Yeah,
stories. You hear that every single day from the media.
yeah,
But there's a very important story that came out today. There were some leaked papers which got released, and coincidentally got released during the just before the midterms, and I think it was probably released on purpose. And apparently in it said that a lot of tech companies like Facebook, Google, Twitter, even were working with the US government, and they were hiding. Um, Basically, they were hiding people who were spreading the truth. They were pushing people who were spreading lies,
yeah,
using algorithms and stuff like that. Even Mark Zuckerberg had admitted this. And they were basically either banning people who were speaking the truth or blocking them or shadow banning them. And apparently, this paper came out today, and it's all been confirmed. And this is one of the reasons why people get cancelled. People don't have a say because if you try and speak the truth, your channel gets shadow banned or doesn't get spread out. But if you're spreading lies, if you're talking nonsense, you'll get millions of views somehow.
yep,
You'll be out there. And these tech companies, they've just got too much power.
Too much power. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Do you think
criminal.
Elon Musk is going to make any changes? Well, but I think Elon Musk is pretty much a puppet as well. I mean,
He
he's
could be.
helping.
He could be. I mean, he's also his own weird kind of guy,
Yeah,
unpredictable.
yeah,
Like Trump, I think is a puppet too, in the sense that he can't do whatever he wants. APAC owns him as well, and the Israelis, and he'll do what they're told. But he's unpredictable. He might say something true in the worst
yeah,
time.
yeah,
So like
yeah,
that. He brought back a sense of nationalism to the American people. That's a threat to the globalists. You don't want any inkling of that. So
yeah, yeah,
even though they have their you know skeletons in their closet. Who knows what Trump's been involved in? Who knows what Elon really is? I don't know. But the fact that they're pushing for free speech, Elon is with the Twitter thing. Yeah, he invited the ADL to have this. I mean, come on, for Christ's sake. But I think it's going to change a little bit. It's not going to make
yeah.
you say whatever you. I mean, people are saying whatever they want right now, and they're kind of testing the
Mm.
waters on Twitter, which is kind of silly. But I think he's, he somewhat cares about humanity. He wants to get to Mars. He
Yeah,
understands that we will go extinct. And someone like that, let's suppose he's a genius and he's like a little, strange in a way. He's eccentric like that. He might not be able to be easily controlled, So,
yeah,
but these people in power want sycophants who take orders. So even if Elon had a little bit of puppetry, he's still unpredictable. It's like that one,
yeah.
you know what
Completely
I mean?
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's like, I don't know.
completely agree. Yeah, the reason I say that is because his Stargate or Star, oh, I can't remember.
Starlink, I think. Yeah,
Starlink,
Starlink.
yeah, Starlink is basically active in Ukraine, and he's helping obviously the Ukraine military, but he's also activating his Starlink in Iran as well, helping the
Well, he
protests
shut
as
off
well.
the Ukrainian Starlink and then turned it back on, because they were threatened. Who knows? The military was threatening to turn it on. I mean, he's still
Yeah,
human.
yeah,
Who knows what they're telling him to do? But people like Elon. I mean, I hope he changes Twitter for the better. It shouldn't be where, because all these anti-free speech groups like the ADL and SPL, all these people, we have a block button. If you
yeah,
don't like the message, just convince
yeah,
people to
exactly.
block them. But they want
Yeah,
control of every stupid,
yeah,
and everything's anti-Semitism, everything's racism and homophobic, everything's evil. Uh, that's
you're
just the
right.
political correctness that they want
Yeah,
to control the narrative. Is what they want.
exactly, and it's happened last few years. I think it happened when Trump came into power, and I've
Yeah,
noticed these things when people were not allowed to say whatever they want. It's not just about Ukraine; it's a big picture. If you say something about wokeism, for example,
yeah.
you get cancelled.
People got banned for saying "learn to code." They were banning people for saying that, the "learn to code," and so now people are saying "learn to code" on just to test it out. So there is already a change in free speech. Like
Mm,
there's only two genders; they're not getting banned for that. So there's already changes from Elon already. It's already been done. So we could prove that right now. Because if
yeah,
you said that earlier, he would have been banned.
yeah,
So
exactly,
there already are
exactly.
changes from Elon Musk. The thing uh, is it is he pushing power to the right wing imperial globalism? You know what I mean? So in my view, there's two types of globalism. You got the neoconservative globalism, then you have the George Soros open society globalism. They
Mm,
both want to take over the world, but they have different ways of doing it.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
That's my view. So I tell people, don't look for a savior. Don't look for Elon Musk or Trump or anyone else to save anybody. And that's the problem. People are like, oh, we need a strong leader to save us. I don't think it's coming. And even if they exist, even if Trump was the guy everyone thought he was from 2016 in his campaign,
mm,
he's only one guy.
yeah,
Everyone else is a treacherous snake, and they're going to do everything to stop him, which they did. So it's the president. They make people think the president's like Hollywood movies. Get the president. He's the most important person. He's nothing. He can't do anything without Congress. He can't do. You see what I mean? So just one person against everyone else who's a traitor, he's going to be
that's right,
cornered. So that's
that's
what they
right.
did with Trump anyway. Even if he was that guy,
Yeah, I mean, one thing good about Trump, he always when
spoke his mind.
he
Spoke
spoke
his
his
mind.
mind and he spoke the truth. When for example, why is U.S. troops in Syria? He said, "Oh, we're there to take the oil." He just
Yeah.
said it straight away,
Why are we in the Middle
straight
East?
up.
We're there for Israel,
Yeah,
which is true.
exactly, which is true. I mean, there's no
What do
point
you want Israel
lying.
to leave? What do you want us to do? It's like, how about we
Yeah,
don't go anywhere?
exactly.
But
And he also said that Ukraine was the most corrupt country on earth.
right,
He also
right.
said that
And
as
he said,
well.
what is it bad to be friends with Russia? Is it a bad thing? Why is it a bad thing? So,
Yeah,
that's the thing about Trump. He said things like that, and everyone's like, oh, well, did he just say that? That's the thing. So, yeah, Elon, and like Trump, is unpredictable. They're not politicians. They're not.
Yeah,
So
that's right. And I remember Trump also mentioned that in a couple of interviews afterwards, or in his memoirs as well, that he used to have daily meetings with the FBI, CIA, and a couple of people giving him daily briefings, and he just stood up and say, "Look, this is all bullshit. I don't believe any of this shit." And he stopped having these daily meetings with them because he just had no confidence in what they were saying. Yeah. And yeah, sometimes he speaks his mind, and you gotta kind of give him that. But compare him to Biden. Biden's, oh my
no,
god, he's
Biden's
just,
obviously worse. I mean, that's the thing, right?
yeah.
The establishment will put up Trump versus Hillary. Okay, you're not going to pick Hillary. Trump versus Biden if he runs this. If he runs, I think he's going to probably. Did he announce today that he's going to run? I think
He did, yeah, he
he
did.
did. He did say he was
Yeah,
going to run. Okay, so now it's
yeah.
going to be Trump. I don't know if DeSantis is going to. Maybe he's going to. I don't know if he's going to be a
But it
competition
might
there.
change. It depends on the midterms. If they lose really badly, I
Yeah.
guess
So,
we're not
but like,
sure.
look, either way, it's like, can't we do better than this? Of course we can, but the system makes sure we get these people to select the
Yeah, I
lesser of two
mean,
evils. You know.
yeah, exactly. And you just got to look at the second person in charge, Kamala Harris. I mean, she was there
Oh my God.
she was there. That's probably one of the best chess moves I've ever seen. You put somebody like that in second in power, and that keeps you in power because you know that the second in charge is more dumber than you are, and nobody's gonna stand for it.
Yeah, I'm like I at this point, America is just the laughing stock of the planet, and that's why the Iranians call us the Great Satan, and I don't disagree at all. And that's coming from a former Marine who fought for this country, and I agree with everyone who tells us what we are. We are the Great Satan. We are deceivers. We are degenerate. We are unhealthy physically and mentally. We are going down the drain, literally, and I'm seeing it unfold. And having two children, I'm concerned. So now as a father, I got to be a parent and protect my kids from the degeneracy in the schools.
Mm.
So I tell people, don't look up to any politician to save anything. They're not going to save anybody. They're not going to stop anything. You have to do it. You have to stand up against vaccine mandates and mask mandates and whatever else. It's not going to be them. They're easily bought and sold. Or they're all not sold. They're all bought already. So they're allowed to be politically incorrect within a certain box. They can't go outside of it. You see, so it's a good cop, bad cop. So
Yeah,
a lot of Republicans like DeSantis has a lot of common sense stuff, but he doesn't go too far to the. He won't call out the Federal
yeah,
Reserve. He won't call out the banking cartel, or he won't do that. He'll just drag queen story. Oh yeah, Mr. DeSantis. You're not solving the problem that our country is run by bankers that are oligarchs. You're not solving it.
yeah. Hey, look, I respect DeSantis. I respect him because he stood up to the most evil, corrupt business in the world, which is Disney. They were
Mm.
out there, polluting kids in schools, teaching them their woke nonsense and things like that. And DeSantis is the first governor who actually stood up to
But
that.
here's my point I'm trying to say, AJ. That's common. That should have been done by anyone. So
Yeah,
the fact that he's the one doing, the good cop. I'm not saying don't vote for. I'm just saying for me, I look at politics, dog and pony show. You have the worst type, Biden, versus this other guy. You're going to pick the other guy, but that's still part of the system. So it's an illusion of choice, but you don't have a choice because they're already set in front of you. Here are your candidates. This guy is less bad than this guy. Oh, I'll go with the less guy, but this guy's still working for the powerful swamp, which there's always they're all swamps. Everything's left wing swamp, right wing swamp. They just take turns. We're going to drain the swamp. Trump said, yeah, he just put neocons in another swamp. It's not like any different. So I'm not voting. I didn't vote yesterday or today. I don't care. I'm done. I did my. I voted for Trump when he ran the first time, and then he killed Soleimani and bombed Syria. So there's the blood on my hands. I'm not dealing with it ever again. So no thanks.
sure. I know you. I know you mentioned before the call that you don't really care who wins, whether it's the Republicans or Democrats. But don't you think that if the Republicans win more seats, that this could be a way to exit from Ukraine? They might kind of
Sure.
start.
Yeah. What I'm saying though, even though that's probably the case, it doesn't stop another war that the Republicans want somewhere else.
Yeah.
So the system is never challenged. These people in front of us that we choose or we think we vote for, they're all safe. They're all kosher in the system. You understand? They're all allowed to speak in certain ways and have their little character. It's like a WWE script. If voting made a difference, they wouldn't let you vote. That's what I think. So yeah, can someone get through the cracks and get too popular? Okay, then they isolate them. You see. So think what you want of what's her name, Marjorie Green, whatever her name is.
Yeah.
A little wacky, but she really believes in her beliefs. And what do? They put her in a corner. Or Thomas Massey, put him in a corner. They try to demonize people in different ways, or that anyone who really has the American people's interest in mind, they corner them. And then
You're 100% right, and you're 100% right. I think if the Republicans do come into power, they're gonna they're going to be fed up of Ukraine. They're going to, you know what, we're
sure,
fed up of giving money to Ukraine. Let's look for the next big
let's go to
thing.
war with China.
Yeah, exactly. The
So
next big
nothing's
thing.
solved. I want to see a politician says, you know what, get rid of the Federal Reserve, get rid of the CIA, like Ron Paul. That's what we need. That's a guy who is running on real stuff, freeing the American people from this monetary debt system. The bankers are the number one enemy of all mankind. You don't even talk about them. How are you going to free this country? You see, because once they're buying everyone out, they have everything.
Yeah.
If you don't take care of that threat to this country, which we were warned by all of our forefathers, essentially, right? John Adams and everyone saying, don't give these people power; they'll take over your country. And we did in 1913 with the Federal Reserve Act. We never addressed it ever again, except Ron Paul said we have to audit the Fed, whatever the hell that means, right? At least that's a start. So these politicians, they don't challenge the real people in power. It doesn't matter who wins. That's what I'm saying.
That's right.
Because look, DeSantis wins. Okay, Disney gets punished or whatever. Then he loses. The other guys do the opposite. Or executive order from Trump reversed by executive order by Biden. Back and forth, power struggle. Meanwhile, the bankers make all the money, stealing all of our wealth, taking all our resources, and they always win, no matter who's in charge. So
yeah, of course.
That's why I say, what's the point? What's the point?
Yeah, I remember the 2008 crash. The bankers caused it, but they're the ones that won most of all because
and we paid for it.
Yeah, and it's the ordinary people who lost their homes, and these homes went into foreclosure, and then the bankers bought them up very cheap, and now they've rented them out, and obviously they're making money through rent. And this is what's going to happen now as well. People are going to lose their homes. The rich are going to buy these homes very cheap, and they're going to rent them for the future. So the ordinary people, the poor and the middle class, are being squeezed out. They're going to end up with nothing, while the bankers and the rich guys will end up with everything. And it's happening in UK as well. UK government is also run by the bankers. The bankers said no to Liz Truss, get rid of her, and they got rid of her. And then Rishi Sunak is now basically doing everything that the bankers wanted. They kept he's released a cap on bankers' bonuses so they can make millions again, taking big risks and put the economy in jeopardy. So yeah, things are not looking good, and I think you're right, 100% right. Bankers and also fossil fuel people as well. I mean, you just see
there's these billionaire people that run the world that they're not elected. They're not politicians.
Exactly, and like BP and Shell in UK, they've made 80 billion in a few months of profit. 80 billion. Imagine if that money went into UK and helped the people, helped them with the bills and gas. It would have helped a lot. But this money is not going to the UK. This money is going to the shareholders.
Yes,
it's going to go to these corporate guys, and these corporate guys are not going to keep the money. They're not going to keep the money in UK. They're going to send it to offshore accounts because that's what the rich guys do. They send it to offshore accounts. They avoid tax. They don't pay any tax on it. They send it to offshore accounts, buy properties all over the world. They're not going to even invest in their own country. They're going to buy it all over the world, Dubai or wherever these millionaires, billionaires buy it. And it just gets worse. I was going to also talk to you about Nord Stream 2. I mean, does everyone still believe? People in Britain believe that Britain did it, and a lot of people feel that the British did it. But it doesn't really matter whether the British did it or not. Obviously, the Americans knew about it as well. They probably, spoke to each other. And there's also a story about Liz Truss where somebody hacked her phone, and just after the Nord Stream blew up, she sent a message to Blinken saying it's done, apparently. And what's your thoughts on that? I mean, do you have any thoughts on?
Well, I think Russia did it. That's my opinion. That's a ridiculous propaganda. Yeah, the Russians did it. Yeah, the leverage they had over Germany and Europe, they blew it up themselves. No, clearly it was probably the work of the British and the United States discussing how important it is to take this leverage from Putin. It's probably what it was, and they did that attack there. Because if it was the Russians, how did they get there undetected in those waters? How did they? You know what I'm saying? Like the people don't have their narratives. Always, there's always a problem with their narratives. So anyway, yeah, 100%. It was the West, probably Britain and MI6. In fact, they say that the Crimean bridge attack was also MI6 involved too.
Yeah, yeah.
So the British are all over this
Yeah, of
attack.
course. And it makes sense for the British to do it because do you know why? Since the Brexit, they cannot show the British people and they cannot show the world that they are weak and Europe is strong. So anything they can do to weaken Europe, the British will be happy about that, And they know once this conflict is over, and once if Germany starts having a peace deal with Russia, and Germany starts getting cheap gas again from Russia, Europe will start shooting up again in terms of GDP. The economy is going to start shooting up. Britain's going to be left, in the dust, really. And this is all down to Brexit. I think a lot of people in Britain, they don't want to see a strong Europe because they know Britain's absolutely destroyed. The economy is destroyed. The manufacturing is destroyed. So it's in their best interest to see Europe, same thing happening to Europe as well. It's a very much a case of jealousy. And I believe in one of those rooms when they were talking about something like that. And I bet a British person put their hands up in the air saying, I got an idea, let's blow up Nord Stream. And everyone was like, what? Yeah, let's blow up Nord Stream. I'll do it. In fact, we'll do it. You guys just watch and we'll do it.
Yeah, in American, it's funny, the axis of evil, right? It's really America and Britain.
Yeah,
really, it's like we've always been the evil, But
yeah,
no, it's ridiculous how they would gaslight us with the Russians did it. And I'm like, yeah, why the hell would he do it? Well, because he wants to frame the Ukraine. What? Come on, man. Yeah.
If you think about it, if the Russians wanted to do it, they would have blown up the Nord Stream pipes, which is near their borders, because it goes from the Russian borders all the way to the German border. Yeah. So you would have made sense for them to blow it up near the Russian
Ukrainians
border.
Did it. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. So that's, again, these stupid narratives, they don't add up. But people know that it wasn't the Russians. Just like everybody knows Epstein didn't kill himself.
Yeah,
so it's a known thing. Yeah. And people are still like, okay, in a sense, like, oh, well, we're being lied to. Oh, well, that's like the people are so beaten down with this corruption. It's like, it's normalized. It's very, very sickening. It's sad to see. I mean, it really is. But like I said, the people are so divided in every way, for politically, religiously, racially. That's why the media is always pumping out this critical race theory or wage pay gap or 95 genders, or because people are so they're so overwhelmed with so much domestic crap, they can't even think about the rest of the world. Oh, well, the Nord Stream 2 pipeline was blown up by us. Oh, well, I got to worry about this drag queen story hour at my school. And I got to worry about my mortgage. And I got to worry about how much this food costs. And I got to worry about diesel prices and gas. And that's why the people they're so beaten down and exhausted from just trying to make ends meet. They don't have time to revolt. I thought, listen, if there was a time for revolution globally, it should have been with COVID. Lockdown should have been it. And I saw the people fall for it. I was like, oh, it's over. They can do anything they want now. Literally can do anything they want at this point.
That's right.
Sadly.
Yeah. So my question is, why do you think the European leaders are going along with it, destroying their own economies and destroying their own countries and putting such, hardships for their own people? Well, why do you think they're doing this? I mean, it just makes no sense.
It doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, I don't understand why they're probably taking orders from the United States. It's really what it is. The U.S. is telling them what to do. And I think, like Germany, they say it's still occupied. They say the Germans have never been unoccupied ever since World War II, that we're still there technically. We never not declared war, something like that. But I don't know why. But, we're seeing a rise in nationalism. We're seeing Italy, for example, with Meloni coming to power. We see others like Orban, like resisting things. So I think this is going to push people into more nationalism. Eventually, the European people are going to revolt at some point. They have to. But why would they purposely cause these problems? I have no idea. This is insane.
It just makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. I don't see the end game.
I mean, you've seen previous European leaders. The last great French leader was Jacques Chirac, who stood up against the Iraq War, and he
Mm.
just said in front of Bush's face, he says, "I do not believe you. This is all bullshit." He just said that, and then obviously you had Merkel as well, he was famously standing up against Trump as well many times, and there's a picture of her literally on the table, towering over Trump, and she was one strong woman. And even before her, Schroeder, I believe, he was pretty good as well. I just do not understand where all these weak leaders have come from in the world. I mean, I'm not just talking about Germany. I'm talking about UK, France. You know, is it me, or are the Western leaders getting more and more dumb every single
Well,
year?
actually, now I think about it, with the Klaus Schwab Great Reset type of thing, it would actually benefit if everything started collapsing, because then they could come with the solution, right? So,
Yeah.
oh my God, this isn't work. Well, we got to try this new stakeholder capitalism. You won't own anything, but you'll be happy, right? Remember that whole thing? So
Yeah.
that could be the reason why they're purposely demolishing everything so that we could bring in the Great Reset. Now that I think about it, that actually makes a lot more sense. So
That,
this system would collapse. Oh, we tried. We got to try something new. Okay, here's the new thing. We'll own everything. You guys could be serfs, and you just rent everything you want. That's what they're trying to push. So that
well,
would
yeah,
make sense.
because this is where things are going. Because the way the inflation is rising, with the way interest rates are rising, there's going to come a time when people are not going to be able to afford food. They're not going to be
No.
able to afford to keep their homes because the interest rates have gone so high. They can't pay their mortgage. The banks will take it, and a lot of people will lose their homes. A lot of people will not know whether to keep their children warm or keep their children fed. Um, all the bankers and all the rich will come and take up all of their homes very cheap, like in foreclosures, like they did in 2008. And I think it is heading that way. And you can see the debt United States has right now,
Yeah.
31 trillion and
Yeah.
counting. And that's going to shoot up now because the interest rates have obviously gone up. So imagine, the interest rates. Imagine the interest rates on 31 trillion. I mean, it's
There's no paying this back. It's
no,
a
no
Ponzi
way.
scheme.
I
Yeah,
mean, the interest rates will be more than any average country
yeah.
makes in terms of GDP. It's crazy the amount of interest on that. So there is no way United States, like you said, can pay that back. And the only way to get rid of it is hyperinflation and a great reset. And I think that's the only. They'll just
Back in the day, a lot of empires would just clean. They just get rid of the debt. They'd have a
yeah,
ceremony like, "Oh, we're no more debt," and just start over. I mean, I wish
yeah,
that would
yeah.
happen, but they're not going to let that happen. They're going to enslave us even further with this whole. I think the Great Reset is that's what it's coming down to. So that would make total sense now that I think about it. Collapse everything, and then this other system will save us. Problem, reaction, solution, right? That kind of
Sure,
thing. They create the
sure.
problem. You get reactions to, oh my God, and then they have the solution to the problem they started.
Exactly. Are you a film buff? Do you watch films? I mean, this Nord Stream stuff looks like something out of Mission Impossible, and I've
Mm-hmm.
got a
Yeah.
vision of Tom Cruise jumping out of an airplane.
Yeah, it was Tom
Um,
Cruise,
yeah,
actually.
and he just jumps into the water, grabs hold of an underwater drone, and goes in there, lays a couple of bombs, and when he's about to go to the surface, his foot gets stuck somewhere, and
Mm-hmm.
he has to get out, and he's got a couple of seconds left to survive, and he managed to set himself free, and last seconds these pipelines blow off, and that's it, Mission Impossible done. Um, it does look like one of those Mission Impossible things. The funny thing is, you see in social media, mainstream media as well, they don't even mention these stories. It's just complete silence. If they knew that Russia did it, or if they had any sort of inkling it was Russia, it would have been all over the papers and every single day. Russia terrorists. Look what they've done.
Yeah,
But
and they would have proved it too.
yeah, the fact that it's so silent, it just goes to show how they're trying to hide things. So we're coming up to 1.5 hours now. I'm not going to keep you much longer.
Okay.
Do you have anything more to say? Do you have anything more to say about before we close this?
Well, the other thing I can say is, don't underestimate the power of telling people the truth, but don't only rely on that, because people say the truth will set you free. Yeah, but you have to act on the truth. So everyone knows smoking is bad. yet people still spoke, right? So you have to act in the truth. And not every one of us has power. We're not politicians. So take the truth and act within your own community, with your family. Do what you can in your life to lead by example. That's what I've been doing lately. And, it's basically changed my life. I basically was never going to say anything political ever again. Then I made that video that just went viral because I had to say
Mm.
something, and I said it with such
Yeah.
passion, and I was being neutral. I was appealing to both the Ukrainians and the Russians, but apparently being neutral is evil and calling for peace is not good. So anyway, but all I can say to the audience here is, don't give up on, telling people the truth, and try to look at people like they're sick. Like don't get mad at other people, because I used to do this years ago. I used to disparage people. Oh, you're an idiot. How do you believe that? You're so stupid, right? So imagine, like, if you went to the doctor and you say, doctor, I'm oh, you're so stupid. Get out. You got to treat them like they're sick of something. They're like, okay, this guy is he's coughing on me. He's got an issue. So have compassion with people who are deluded, because there was a time where I was deluded. If you told me don't go to Iraq, I'd be like, you're a traitor to the United States. I would have said that years ago, you see, when I was a Marine. So all of us at some point we didn't always know the truth. So have compassion when you run into someone who doesn't get it yet. Show them the facts, show them, be nice and kind. What if, and ask them Socratic method. Well, what if this is the case? How do you know that's true? Don't be like, you stupid liberal, you stupid communist. Don't do that, because I used to do that. It doesn't work. It makes people even worse. You will run into people, however, like I did today, that no matter what you say, they're going to say, I hope you die. I hate you. And that's at that point, you just say, okay, good luck, brother. I hope you find peace, and let them go. But don't waste. But if there's someone willing to have a civil discourse, keep it civil. No ad hominems. Don't disparage them. And don't call them crazy. Say that what they think is a little. Don't you think it's a little off, brother? Don't you think it's a little crazy to think that? Like, not you're crazy, but isn't that a weird situation? You really think the Russians would blow up their own pipeline? Why would they do that? How does that make sense? Those kind of questions, and treat them like a patient, and you're the doctor. And I promise you guys, you'll be able to wake people up better. So I've been doing that lately. It's been way more positive than I did before. And I want to leave that piece of advice with all the listeners, because again, it's good that we have these shows. It's good that we're sharing this information, but it's even better if we convert people to the truth. That's the real meaning of this. We could talk amongst ourselves. We all know the truth, or what we think is the truth, right? But we tell people and they don't listen. Well, it's best to have them to wake up. So you got to do it in the right way.
So Lucas, I got one more question I've
Sure.
written down. I've completely forgot to ask you, and it's quite important actually. We know that the United States is going through a de-dollarization
Oh, yeah,
process at the moment, and the rest of the world seems to be dumping their dollars.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
My question is, obviously President Xi is going to Saudi Arabia next week, or could be even this week, and he would probably announce Saudi Arabia to join the BRICS.
Mm.
And once they join the BRICS, they're probably going to be doing some sort of reserve currency, a brand new reserve currency, which is going to take over the dollar. Do you think the United States will stand for that, or do you think they'll have to go into Saudi Arabia and invade?
I don't think they're going to be able to this time. You see what I mean? I mean, if the Russians and Chinese are going to help Saudi Arabia, then I don't know. I don't think so.
But there's a huge amount of troops in Saudi Arabia, US
Mm.
troops, and they obviously all of the weapons that Saudi Arabia has are US weapons, and US can easily stop them at any point,
They could
because of
certainly kill people. I just don't know. I mean, look, the fact they're even abandoning this now is like a really big slap in the face to America. Well, not to me and you. I'm glad. I'm glad my country no longer has hegemony over the world once this happens. I'm willing. And I told people this is the best thing that ever happened. Stop policing the world, become isolationists, no more foreign aid, close the border for 100 years. Let's fix our problems at home. Let the world deal with itself.
sure,
We're lucky that the whole world isn't declaring war on us for what we've done. We're getting away, in a way, we're getting away with it. So let's just take
yeah.
this loss and go. I
But,
hope the Americans don't invade Saudi Arabia or do what they have to do there. I mean, they could. I'm not saying it's not
yeah.
possible. They assassinate some prince or something.
Mm.
But if they have the backing of China and Russia now, and I don't know, man. You think they'll assassinate somebody at the top there for doing this?
I just think that if the dollar keeps, if the world keeps dumping the dollar and the reserve currency of the dollar keeps going down, and
Yeah, well,
Saudi Arabia,
right. Yeah, I agree with
yeah,
that.
and Saudi Arabia
Petrodollar's finished.
agrees to kind of do petrodollar in a completely different currency, like the BRICS currency, for example. I think that the oil prices, if they keep going up in United States, and this is going to be looking very bad for Biden, and they're gonna come a point when the oil prices go so high that there's going to be people rioting in the streets, because when the
I
oil
did. Go ahead, finish. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, I think when oil prices go high, I think that's when people kind of really rise up, because everything else goes up as well, because you got to transport goods, for example, in
Hmm.
supermarkets, so all the goods will go up as well, and then gas prices, and it just adds so much to inflation. And I just think that I don't think the United States will sit there and take it. They will have to do something. And one of the things they might do, I mean, one of the reasons they went into Iraq, for example, it was because
Well, right.
Saddam Hussein was he agreed to sell oil in other currencies. So
Sure.
they did the same thing to Gaddafi as
Yeah.
well.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe if this happens to Saudi Arabia, they might do the same thing.
It's possible, but also I spoke to my brother-in-law about this. He's in fight. He says, maybe it'll ruin us, but we could just start drilling for oil again. We have enough oil for ourselves anyway, which is strange.
Yeah,
I don't know why we depend on OPEC regardless. We shouldn't. We should be
yeah,
autonomous in this way. But maybe that's what will happen. Maybe the United States will say, all right, well, if there's a coup or something we failed to do or something, we just have to drill our own oil. That could be it. But yeah, I wouldn't put it past some kind of assassination attempt or false
mm,
flag or something like that. But the world is sick of America. That's why this is happening. That's the Saudi Arabians are willing to leave us because we're unpredictable. We probably would kill them. That's why they're probably like, we need new friends, right?
yeah,
So Russia has been smart. China has been smart about it. We're just waiting for us to collapse, and it's happening right before our eyes in every way. Financially, economically, morally, spiritually, nationally. Our culture is just what culture? What's it? I don't even know what American culture is at this point. Everything's falling apart, and everyone sees it. And I think that's the move. The Saudi Arabians are going to go to the winning team, which is going to be the multipolar world that is unfolding before us. It's inevitable. You know why it's inevitable? Because nothing lasts forever. America cannot be the global police forever. And we've done so much damage so quickly.
yep,
The world's tired of it. So I don't blame the world for hating us. I don't blame
yeah.
anyone
I
leaving
I
us.
I think they could have stayed forever. Well, I mean, there was a point when United States was really admired around the world.
Yeah, well,
The Chinese loved the American culture at one point, because I lived in China, and they loved the
mhm.
American culture. And all of Asia, really, all of Asia, Middle East, and but they ruined it. I just think they just ruined it with all these sanctions and
And wars and death.
wars and
Yeah, yeah, of course.
hegemony. They had the chance, and I think people got sick of it. And I think if they kind of left, if they kind of left, if they went so crazy with sanctions and wars and stuff, I think
Yeah.
they would have been
Mm.
fine. World would have been fine as the US being the hegemon, being the world's police. But I think they just kind of
No, they ruined
ru-
it, of course. But I
ruined
mean,
the
even
powers
so,
they had.
nothing. But even so, in physical nature, nothing lasts forever anyway. So it was
Yeah,
inevitable; it would collapse regardless. I'm
that's right.
speaking as a philosopher now. I'm not a politician. So inevitably, we would have collapsed regardless.
Yeah.
But here we sped it up way quickly than we had to. So
Sure. Okay, I'm not going to keep you in much longer, because I know you have to go back to your
sure,
family. I really appreciate your time, Lucas, and really enjoyed speaking to you.
yeah,
I think the viewers want to know, would you come again at some point in the future?
of course. Just let me
Yeah,
know. I'll come back and talk whatever.
excellent, excellent.
It's always a good time to talk to people of like mind.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, it was something different from Redacted. I think I asked you a lot of different
Oh yeah, no,
questions.
we definitely went on different
Yeah,
topics. Sure,
yeah,
of course.
yeah. Excellent. But I think you should carry on. I think definitely you should um, probably do more of your YouTube channels. I think a lot more people want to listen to what you have to say. You've got a lot of great knowledge, and I think a lot of people will listen to you. And like you've seen in the Iraq War, the truth does come out.
Yeah,
Eventually
over
after.
time when the damage is done, but
Yeah, the damage is done. Like
yeah,
that girl, like the Iraqi girl who was saying, oh, sorry, that Kuwaiti girl who was
yeah,
saying about the incubators. The truth
yeah,
came out years later. And I can see in like 2, 3 years later, all these papers coming out saying Zelensky was a real Nazi, and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
all of these Azovs and Nazis, they were so corrupt, and they were the bad guys. They fooled us, and I can imagine these stories coming out. But right now, yeah, they just kind of trying to block all of that information.
Yep.
All right, Lucas, appreciate your time. Thanks for everything. Thanks for all the moderators out there. Thanks for everyone that's listening. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And yeah, thanks for your time, and I'll see you guys soon. Lucas, just gonna hold on for a second while I shut this down. I want to say goodbye to you properly.
Okay. Take care, audience or
Yep.
chat.